Excuse me, sir. What are you doing out here?
Just waiting for my bus. Why?
This isn't a bus stop. What's that in your hand?
My walking stick. I'm blind.
You're looking straight at me, and that looks like a weapon.
I'm not looking at you, sir. I just hear your voice.
Huh. Well, we got a call about a man with what looked like a weapon, and you matched the description.
The cold afternoon sun of Baltimore January provided sharp, deceptive light on the corner of Pratt Street and Light Street. It was 3:45 p.m. on a Friday, the kind of hour when the downtown business district transitions from the frenzy of lunch hour to the methodical exodus of the evening commute. The air was a brisk 38 degrees Fahrenheit, forcing pedestrians to quicken their pace, their shoulders hunched against the chill. On a public red bench outside a CVS pharmacy sat Jerome Washington. He was a black man in his mid-40s, immaculately dressed in a blue-striped shirt and dark trousers, his face shielded by dark sunglasses and a red baseball cap. Leaning against his leg was a white, collapsible cane, the universal, federally recognized symbol of blindness. Jerome was a professional, a telephone customer service representative for an insurance company, a job that demanded patience, clear communication, and an attention to detail that transcended sight. He was waiting for the Route 3 bus, returning from his weekly physical therapy appointment, a routine he had mastered over 11 years of complete, permanent vision loss. He had rebuilt his life from that darkness, undergoing 18 months of intensive rehabilitation to master orientation and mobility skills, learning to navigate the city's complex bus system by counting stops and listening intently. He trained himself to live independently, a testament to resilience and meticulous habit. He was exactly where he needed to be, committing no crime, causing no disturbance, simply utilizing public transit with the aid of a legally protected mobility device. But Jerome's quiet, peaceful routine was about to collide with a force far more unpredictable than city traffic, the unexamined, unchallenged bias of Officer Kyle Brennan. Brennan had been with the Baltimore Police Department for 5 years, a tenure not marked by heroic saves, but by a chilling, repetitive pattern of misconduct. His file contained 13 formal complaints, 12 of which shared a terrifyingly precise common denominator: stops of black men in commercial areas for suspicious loitering. The victims were bank customers, students, delivery drivers, all performing mundane, legal activities, but all viewed through Brennan's distorted filter of hypervigilance. The man waiting outside a bank was questioned for planning a robbery. The man checking his phone near a jewelry store was searched for casing the location. Each complaint concluded with the same ineffective, bureaucratic response: mandatory de-escalation training that Brennan attended but never internalized. The system had repeatedly granted him licenses to continue patrolling, convinced that a warm body was more valuable than a functional officer. That Friday, Brennan was primed. His dispatch call was anonymous and vague. Suspicious male near Pratt and Light, possibly armed, dark clothing, red hat, sitting alone with what looked like a pipe or club. Brennan did not question the caller's vague description or their interpretation of a weapon. He immediately filled in the blanks with his default narrative: black man, commercial district, loitering, threat. He pulled his patrol car to the curb and, with his hand hovering near his service weapon, approached. He saw the red baseball cap, the dark profile, and the white object. Brennan's mind, trained by 5 years of unchecked profiling, registered the white cane not as a mobility aid, but as a potential weapon: a club, a pipe, a martial arts stick. His deep-seated conviction that black men in public were threats allowed him to mistake a federally recognized symbol of disability for a reason to escalate a confrontation. He transformed a routine bus wait into a public humiliation that would cost the city $1 million and end his career. The true drama of this encounter rests on the perfect, absolute juxtaposition between Jerome Washington's reality and Officer Brennan's perception. Jerome's life was a testament to meticulous navigation and deep reliance on non-visual cues. His bone conduction headphones played a podcast, leaving his ears open to the world, a crucial safety measure that allows blind pedestrians to remain aware of traffic and approaching people. When the heavy, purposeful footsteps of the officer approached, Jerome did what any human does. He angled his head toward the sound. This natural reflex, essential for orientation in the non-sighted world, would be misinterpreted by Brennan as visual confirmation. Jerome turned his head slightly toward the sound. "Excuse me, sir, what are you doing out here? What's that in your hand?" Jerome recognized the tone instantly, authority laced with suspicion. "Just waiting for my bus. Why? This is the Route 3 stop right here." He lifted the cane slightly. "And this is my walking stick. I'm blind." Brennan, a man who had never been corrected for his biases, saw this interaction through a lens of professional paranoia and prejudice. When Jerome angled his head, Brennan saw direct eye contact. To Brennan, a blind person looking straight at him while wearing expensive sunglasses was deception. He had already been conditioned to believe that people claiming a disability were often lying, faking, or attempting to avoid scrutiny. "You're looking straight at me, and that looks like a weapon. Set that stick down on the ground, and I need to see some identification." Jerome let out an involuntary, small laugh, not of amusement, but of the absurdity of the situation. "I'm not looking at you, sir. I just hear your voice. I can't see anything. I'm completely blind. This is a white mobility cane. It's how I navigate the world safely." The confrontation intensified over the white cane. For Jerome, it wasn't just a tool. It was his independence, his eyes, and his legal right under the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA. Surrendering it meant immediate helplessness, vulnerability, and potential injury. "Officer, I'm happy to provide identification, but I cannot set down my cane. It's a medical device, protected under the ADA. I need it to orient myself, to walk safely, to avoid obstacles. Asking me to put it down is like asking someone in a wheelchair to get out and walk." Brennan, having received only the most rudimentary, insufficient training on disability awareness, processed this as resistance. All Brennan understood was his training on compliance and control. Compliance equals safety. Resistance equals threat. He did not know that white canes are federally protected. He did not care about the ADA. He only cared about establishing control over a subject he had already judged as suspicious. "Sir, I'm not going to ask again. Put down the stick." Jerome's heart rate accelerated. He knew the stories from the blind community, stories of police encounters gone wrong when mobility aids were confiscated. "And I'm telling you, I legally cannot comply with that request. I'm blind. This is my mobility aid. I have documentation, but I will not surrender my ability to navigate safely." Brennan keyed his radio. "Dispatch, need backup at Pratt & Light. Male subject refusing commands. Possible weapon." The use of the word weapon against a mobility aid was the final unforgivable escalation. Jerome felt the ice flood his veins. Weapon? Backup? He was a blind black man sitting on a public bench, and he was genuinely terrified. He could not see the officer's position, the incoming backup, or the obstacles around him. His life was suddenly, terrifyingly, at the mercy of a man who refused to believe his truth. He did not stand, not out of defiance, but out of necessity. Rising without his cane meant losing all orientation and risking a serious fall or collision. Within 90 seconds, Officer Maria Santos arrived. A 16-year veteran, Santos had recently completed enhanced disability awareness training and, more importantly, had years of practical human experience. She took in the scene instantly. The distinctive reflective markings on the white cane, the small white dots at the temples of Jerome's glasses, a common indicator of vision loss, and the calm, non-aggressive posture of the man on the bench. "Brennan, what's the situation? That's a white cane. He's blind. This is a federally protected mobility device." Brennan was still fixated on his flawed observation. "He keeps looking at me, and he won't put the stick down." Santos refuted his bias with training. He's orienting to your voice. That's what people do when they can't see. Blind individuals turn their heads towards sound. That's hearing, not vision. Santos immediately de-escalated, addressing Jerome directly, clearly, and with respect. "Mr. Washington, I'm Officer Santos. I apologize for this encounter. You're not in any trouble. You have every legal right to wait here for your bus." The entire sequence, Brennan's refusal to see, Jerome's patient explanation, Santos's immediate recognition, and the growing crowd of witnesses with phones recording, was creating a digital, undeniable record of constitutional violation. A woman from inside the CVS came out to provide context, stating, "Officer, I see this man here twice a week. He always waits for that bus. He's blind. Everyone in the neighborhood knows him. What just happened is discrimination." The liability was mounting in real time. Sergeant Dennis Cole, a 23-year veteran, arrived to supervise the chaotic scene. He spoke with Santos, reviewed the cane, talked to the witnesses, and listened to Jerome's account. His face hardened as he approached Brennan. The sheer textbook nature of the violation, stopping a blind man for holding his cane, was inexcusable. Badge and service weapon, administrative leave, effective now. Brennan was still attempting to justify his actions. "Sergeant, I responded to a weapons call." Cole cut him off, his voice final. "You stopped a blind man for using his white cane. You called a federally protected disability aid a weapon. You demanded he surrendered his ability to navigate. You created an ADA violation that's now documented by multiple witnesses with video evidence. Badge, weapon, immediately." Brennan, trembling, surrendered his authority. His 5-year career ended over a piece of equipment that every state in the Union legally mandates be recognized and respected. But the real indictment was not just against Brennan. It was against the institution that allowed him to continue patrolling. The lawsuit filed on behalf of Jerome Washington was devastating because it weaponized Brennan's entire history. 13 formal complaints over 5 years, 12 involving black men, all dismissed with inadequate training. The lawsuit argued deliberate indifference by the Baltimore PD, a choice to prioritize officer retention over community safety and protection against discriminatory practices. The complaint highlighted that the department had repeatedly ignored evidence of Brennan's pattern of discriminatory stops. Not one of the prior 12 complaints resulted in meaningful discipline, only temporary superficial retraining that failed to alter his behavior. This negligence transformed individual bias into institutional liability. The city had no defense. Body camera footage captured Brennan's blatant ignorance. Audio recorded Jerome's clear, repeated explanations, including the explicit reference to the ADA. The ADA violations were undeniable. The city settled within 14 months for $1 million, one of the largest disability discrimination settlements in Maryland history. Officer Kyle Brennan was terminated 9 weeks after the incident. His termination letter explicitly cited the established pattern of discriminatory stops documented through the 13 complaints as proof of his inability to serve without bias and his fundamental ignorance of disability accommodations. His name was entered into the National Decertification Index, permanently ending his law enforcement career. Jerome Washington, despite the significant settlement, focused on the systemic failure. His testimony before the Baltimore City Council was a measured, unassailable critique. Officer Brennan didn't fail to identify my cane. He refused to listen when I identified it for him multiple times. He chose to see a weapon because he'd already decided I was a threat. That's not a training failure, that's a character failure, enabled by a department that ignored 13 complaints. He elaborated on the psychological trauma. I was not just detained, I was made helpless. I was forced to defend my most essential tool for independence against a man who had the power to take it and leave me vulnerable in a traffic-heavy downtown area. The fear was absolute. The department was forced into systemic reform. mandatory comprehensive disability awareness training prior to solo patrol, automatic investigation triggered by 3 similar complaints within 2 years, and real-time body camera review for all encounters involving disability accommodations. This event was the perfect storm: a career predator of civil rights, Brennan; a patient, legally aware victim who could not be silenced, Washington; and an undeniable viral video record. The $1 million settlement was the financial price, but the true cost was the exposure of the deep, dangerous institutional failure that allowed a man with 13 complaints to criminalize a blind person's right to independent movement. The message of the white cane, the universal symbol of vulnerability and independence, was lost to an officer who only saw the color of the hand holding it and the threat he was trained to assume. The reforms came, but they were 12 complaints and 1 trauma too late. The central lesson remains: the law requires officers to verify facts before escalating, especially when those facts involve protected civil rights and disabilities. Brennan failed to verify the cane's purpose. He failed to verify Giroux's disability. He failed to verify the anonymous tip. His bias, backed by institutional failure, was all the verification he needed, leading him to violate federal law, traumatize a citizen, and destroy his own career over a white cane. This is how systemic racism and ableism operate in tandem, where disability is treated as deception and race is treated as a crime.